Hare Krishna, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra Devi. The appearance of Lord Jagannath. Ratha Yatra, the festival of the chariots. The Ratha Yatra festival, the parade of the chariots of their Lordship, Sri Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra Devi, is yearly celebrated at the home of Lord Jagannath in India called Jagannath Puri. At Jagannath Puri, Lord Jagannath is worshipped in one of the oldest temples in India. The story of how Lord Jagannath appeared is a very interesting episode in Vedic history. King Indradyumna's desire. King Indradyumna was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu and was very eager to meet him face to face. At one time, by the Lord's arrangement, a devotee of the Lord arrived in the court of King Indradyumna, and in the course of discussion, he began to talk about the incarnation of Lord Vishnu named Nila Madhava. After hearing these topics, King Indradyumna became very inspired and sent different brahmanas in different directions to search for and inquire about Lord Nila Madhava. All of them, however, were unsuccessful and returned to the capital city of the king, except for one priest of the name Vidyapati. After wandering in many places, Vidyapati finally came to a district where the population was of a non-Aryan type called Sabara. There he took shelter in the house of a local of the name Vishwavasu. When he arrived, the master of the house was not there, but his young daughter Lalita was there alone. In a short time, the master of the house returned and instructed his daughter to render all service needed for hospitality to the Brahmana guest. For some time, Vidyapati stayed there, and later, by the special request of the Sabara, he married the Sabara's young daughter. Nila Madhava's secret revealed. While Vidyapati lived in the house of the Sabara, he noticed some peculiarity in his host's behavior. Every night the Sabara would go out, and on the next day at about noon he would return to the house scented with various fragrances such as camphor, musk and sandalwood. Vidyapati inquired from his wife about the reason for this, and she informed that her father goes out to a secret place to worship Sri Nila Madhava. After that day, Vidyapati's joy knew no bounds. Actually, Lalita had been ordered by her father not to tell anyone about Nila Madhava, but she overstepped that order by telling her husband. Vidyapati became eager to see Sri Nila Madhava. And finally, one day, by the repeated request of his daughter, the Sabara Vishwavasu bound the eyes of Vidyapati and took him to see Sri Nila Madhava. As they were leaving, Vidyapati's wife secretly bound some mustard seeds in the border of Vidyapati's cloth, and so while passing along the path, he threw them down to make the way. When they reached Sri Nila Madhava, the Sabara removed the blindfold, and Vidyapati, seeing the unprecedented beauty of the deity of Sri Nila Madhava, began to dance in ecstasy and offer prayers. Here it is clearly seen that Sri Nila Madhava was a deity incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Deity incarnation is called Archavigraham. The Lord appears in deity forms to benefit his devotees, especially by those who are less advanced. Since the Lord cannot be seen by any but the most advanced devotees, he appears as the deity to accept worship. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9.34, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer me your obeisance. Therefore, he appears as the deity to accept the worship and obeisance of his devotees. He puts himself in the hands of his devotees to receive their service and help them develop love for him. This is an aspect of Krishna's great mercy and his great desire to free all the conditioned souls from bondage in this material world. Thus, Vidyapati personally witnessed the mercy of Sri Nila Madhava. Liberation for a crow. After Vidyapati finished his prayers, the Sabara kept him near this deity and went out to collect the roots and forest flowers for worship. While the Sabara was out, Vidyapati witnessed an astounding thing. A sleeping crow fell off a branch of a tree into a nearby lake and drowned. It immediately took a four-armed Vaikunta spiritual form and started back to the spiritual sky. Seeing this, the Brahmana climbed up the tree and was about to jump into the lake following the liberated crow. As he was about to jump, however, a voice in the sky said, "O Brahmana, since you have been able to see Sri Nilamadava, you should before you should inform before all else. You should inform to King Indradyumna." Thus the Brahmana climbed down from the tree and waited. Nilamadava disappears. The Sabara soon returned carrying forest flowers and roots, started his daily worship of Lord Nilamadava as he was engaged in the service of the Lord. The Lord spoke to him saying, "I have for so many days accepted the simple forest flowers and roots offered to me by you. Now I desire the royal service offered to me by my devotee King Indradyumna." When the Sabara heard this, he thought, "I shall be cheated from the services of Sri Nilamadava." Therefore he bound his son-in-law Vidyapati and kept him in his house. After a time, however, at the repeated request of his daughter, he freed the Brahmana and allowed him to go. The Brahmana then immediately went to King Indradyumna and informed him of the discovery. The king, in great ecstasy, went forth with many people to bring back Sri Nilamadava. From the mustard seeds thrown along the path by Vidyapati, small plants had grown. So by following these plants, the king was able to trace the path to Sri Nilamadava. When they reached the spot, however, they did not find him. Nilamadava's mercy on Indradyumna, not being able to see the beautiful form of the Lord, King Indradyumna besieged the village of the Sabaras and arrested the Sabara named Vishwavasu. Suddenly, however, a voice in the sky said to the king, "Release this Sabara. On top of Nila hill, you should construct a temple. Whereas Daru Brahman or the absolute truth manifest in a wooden form, you will see me. You will not see me as Nila Madhava." A temple for Nila Madhava. To build the temple, King Indradyumna made arrangement to bring stone from a place called Baulamala by building a road from there to the Nila Kandara hill. The holy abode of Sri Kshetra or Puri is in the shape of a conch, and in the navel of the conch the king established a town of the name Ramakrishnapura and constructed the temple. The temple extended 60 cubits beneath the earth and rose 120 cubits above the surface. At the top of the temple, the king built a kalasha, a round pinnacle, and on top of that a chakra or disc. He also had the temple decorated with golden ornamentation. Then King Indradyumna, desiring for Lord Brahma to consecrate the temple, travelled to Brahmaloka and spent a long time there, waiting for him. During that time, the temple, which is very near the sea, became covered with sand from the shore. When King Indradyumna was away, first Suradeva and then Galamadava took over as the kings of that area. It was Galamadava who raised that temple from within the sands where it had been buried for a long time. Shortly after the temple was uncovered, however, King Indradyumna returned from Lord Brahma's abode. Indradyumna claimed that he had constructed the temple, but Galamadava put forward the claim that he was its constructor. In a banyan tree near the temple, however, lived a Bhushandi crow who had been living through many ages, constantly singing the name of Lord Rama. From his abode on the branches of the banyan tree, the crow had seen the whole construction of the temple. Therefore, he made it known that actually King Indradyumna had constructed the temple and that in his absence it had been uncovered by sand. He further said that King Galamadava had later merely uncovered the temple Because King Galamadava had concealed the truth. Lord Brahma then ordered him to reside outside the grounds of the temple on the western side of the lake called Indradumna Sarovara. Lord Jagannath manifests his eternal form. Indradyumna then prayed to Lord Brahma to consecrate the temple and the surrounding area known as Shri Kshetra, which gives the highest type of liberation. But Lord Brahma said, this Shri Kshetra is manifested by the Supreme Lord's own internal potency, and the Supreme Lord manifests himself. Therefore, it is not within my power to install the Lord here. Lord Jagannath and his abode are eternally situated in his material world by his own mercy. Therefore, I shall simply place a flag on top of the hill and give this blessing. Anyone who from a distance sees this flag and bows down, offering his prostrated obeisance, shall easily become liberated. After some time, King Indradyumna became discouraged at so much delay in seeing Sri Nilamadava. Deciding that his life was useless, he lay down on a bed of kusha grass, being determined to give up his life by fasting. At that time, Lord Jagannath spoke to him in his dream as follows: My dear king, don't be anxious. Don't be anxious. I shall come floating in from the sea in my wooden form as Dharu Brahman at the place called Banki Mohan. With a company of soldiers, the king then went to that place and saw on the shore a huge piece of wood marked with the conch, disc, club and lotus. Although he engaged many men and elephants to move that Dharu Brahman or Woody Brahman, wooden Brahman, they could not even budge it. But that night in a dream, Lord Jagannath again spoke to the king, saying, Bring my previous servant Vishwavasu, who used to serve me as Nilamadava, and place a gold chariot in front of Dharu Brahman. Then king began to work according to the instruction that dream. He brought the Sabara Vishwavasu and put him on one side of Dharu Brahman, and on the other side he put the Brahmana Vidyapati. Placing a golden chariot before the Dharu Brahman, he then started Kirtan, chanting of the holy names of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord. Then the king caught hold of Dharu Brahman and prayed for the Lord to mount the chariot. Dharu Brahman was then easily placed on the chariot and taken to an appointed place. There Lord Brahma began a sacrifice and established a deity of Lord Narasimha Deva on the raised platform of the sacrifice. It is said that the place where the present temple stands is the place where the sacrifice was performed, and that the Narasimha deity now standing at the western side of the Mukti Mandapa in the temple compounds is that original Narasimha deity. To carve the deity of Lord Jagannatha from the Dharu Brahman, King Indradyumna called many expert sculptors. None of them, however, was able to touch Dharu Brahman, for as soon as they shattered, their chisels broke and fell to pieces. Finally, the Supreme Lord himself came in the disguise of an old artist who introduced himself as Ananta Maharana. He promised that if he were allowed to work behind closed doors for 21 days, the deity would be carved. Immediately, preparations were made according to the old sculptor's directions. All the other artists were engaged in making 3 chariots. The old sculptor then took Dharu Brahman into the temple and closed the doors. After making, the king promised that the sculpture would reside alone, and king would not open the doors of the temple even slightly before the 21 days were up. All the other artists were engaged in making 3 chariots after 14 days had passed. However, the king was unable to hear the sounds of artist tools, and so he became full of anxiety. Although his minister again and again forbade him, the king, on the advice of his queen, by force opened the door of the temple with his own hands. Inside, the king did not find the old sculpture, but instead he saw the Dharu Brahman was manifested in 3 forms as Lord Jagannath, Balarama and Subhadra. Going forward in front of these three deities, he saw their the three fingers and toes were unfinished. The king's wise minister then informed him that the architect was none other than Lord Jagannath himself, and that because the king had broken his promise by opening the doors 7 days too soon, Lord Jagannatha had manifested in that way. The Lord's worshipable form. Then the king, thinking himself a great offender, decided to end his life. Thus again he lay down on a bed of kusha and began fasting. When the night has passed, Lord Jagannath appeared to the king in his dreams. The Lord said, I am eternally situated here in Nilachala in the form of Lord Jagannatha as Daru Brahman. In this material world I descended in 24 deity incarnations with my abode. I have no material hands and feet, but with my transcendental senses I accept all the items offered in service by my devotees, and for the benefit of the world I move from one place to another. You have broken your promise, but that is just part of the sweetness of my pastime, to manifest this Jagannatha form which protects the eternal words of Vedas. Anyway, those devotees whose eyes are smeared with the salve of love will always see me as Shyamasundara holding a flute. If your desire is to serve me in opulence, then from time to time I may be decorated with hand and feet made of gold and silver. You should certainly, however, know that my limbs are the ornaments of all the ornaments. The Vedas assert specifically in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, Apanipado Javano Grahita Pashyati Chekshuhu Cha Smoti Akam Hasa Veti Vedyam Nacha Tyasti Vetatam Ahura Agaryam Purusham Mahatam. Without legs and hands he moves and accepts. Without eyes he sees, and without ears he hears. He knows all that is knowable, but no one knows him. They call him original supreme person. To protect this assertion of the Vedas, Lord Jagannath takes his form without hands and legs. Still Lord Jagannatha able to accept 56 different types of food offered 8 times, and he tours the world in his splendid cart. Lord Jagannatha satisfies his devotee. Hearing the words of Lord Jagannath in his dream, the king became satisfied and prayed to him as follows: My Lord, grant that those who appear in the family of a sculpture, who manifested your form, may age after age assist in constructing the 3 carts. Lord Jagannatha, slightly smiling, replied, That shall be. Then Lord Jagannath said to the king, The descendants of Viswavasu, who used to serve me as Nilamadava, should generation after generation serve me. They may be called my Daitas. The descendants of Vidyapati, born from his Brahmana wife, should perform the deity worship. The descendants of Vidyapati, born from his Brahmana wife, should perform the deity worship for me. And his descendants, born from his Sabari wife, Lalita, should cook my food. They shall be known as Suyadharas. The king Indradumna said to Lord Jagannath, My Lord, kindly grant one favor to me. Let the doors to your temple be closed for only 3 hours a day. The rest of the time, let the doors be open so that all residents of the universe may have access to see you. Further, let it be that all day long your eating may go on, and that your lotus fingers may thus never become dry. Lord Jagannath replied, Tatastu, so be it, and yourself, what benediction do you ask? The king replied, So that no one in the future will be able to claim temple as his own property, I desire to be without descendants. Kindly just grant me this one benediction. Lord Jagannath replied, Tatastu, so be it. Thus the merciful Lord Jagannath, Baladrama and Subhadra appeared in this material world to benefit all living beings. All is the benefit. What is the benefit they bestow? That is stated in the Narada Purana. Pratimam tatratam drushtva स्वयं देवेन निमितम् अनन्यसेन वै यान्ति भवनं मे ततो नर्च. The Supreme Lord Narayana tells Lakshmi Devi in that great abode known as Supurushottama Kshetra, which is rarely achieved among all the three worlds, the Keshava deity who was fashioned by the Supreme Lord himself is situated. If men simply see that deity, they are easily able to come to my abode. In this way, Lord Jagannatha is delivering the whole universe, especially as he rides on his cart before the eyes of all. Therefore, let us all offer respectful obeisance unto their lordships, Sri Sri Jagannatha, Baladeva and Subhadra Devi, and to their dear most servitor A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, by whose mercy millions of people all over the world are eternally benefited by participating in the Lord's annual Ratha Yatra festival. Let us chant the holy names of Krishna and pull the chariot and get Lord Jagannatha's unlimited mercy. Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava Tume. Kaliyuga Dharma, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Iva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. Kali Santarana Upanishad. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you, Hare Krishna.